Hello and welcome to a new edition of That Was When. Today we're looking at the events of September 11th through history. Let's start with some notable anniversaries. This day in 1297 was fought the Battle of Stirling Bridge between the Scots, led by Andrew Murray and William Wallace, and the combined English forces under the Earl of Surrey and Hugh de Cressingham, in which the English came off very much in second place. The battle is perhaps more widely famous for its portrayal in the movie Braveheart, with Mel Gibson playing the part of Wallace. While the historical accuracy of the film is often debated, one thing is clear: a critical part missing from the Battle of Stirling Bridge was the bridge. It took just 700 years for Scotland to get some semblance of independence, because on this day in 1997, Scotland voted for a devolved parliament in a referendum. Scotland has its own parliament with many powers, including raising taxes and spending on health and education, although there remains a considerable part of the population who still want full independence. In 1792, the beautiful Hope diamond was stolen from the royal storehouse of King Louis XVI of France. I don't imagine he noticed, as it was the start of the French Revolution, and he was about to be sent to the guillotine along with his queen, Marie Antoinette. The brilliant blue stone ended up in London in 1812, eventually purchased by Henry Hope, after whom it is named. A range of misfortune and bankruptcy, including to the once wealthy Ned and Evelyn Maclean, was attributed to the diamond through its history, resulting in the legend that it was cursed, although this may have been a 19th century ruse by jeweller Pierre Cartier to increase interest in the gem and pump up the price. The last owner, jeweller Harry Winston, donated the stone as an exhibition piece to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, where it is on display today. In 1997, NASA's Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft arrived in orbit with a 4-year mission plan to map the entire surface and atmosphere of the red planet in unprecedented detail. Its mission was extended 3 times until November 2006, when contact was finally lost. Images returned by the spacecraft give strong evidence that liquid water has once flowed on the surface and that active erosion continues. It even captured some very large dust devils in the atmosphere. And in 1941, work started on the construction of the Pentagon, once the world's largest office building and the headquarters of America's armed forces. This vast structure was designed by architect George Bergstrom and has about 600,000 square meters of floor space. Even the plaza in the center is 2 hectares, or about 5 acres, in size. On average, about 26,000 people work there at any given time. Exactly 60 years after the construction started, the Pentagon was to have its part in possibly the most momentous event to occur on any September 11. Early in the morning of 11 September 2001, 19 members of Islamist terrorist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial airliners flying from the east coast of the USA, headed towards California. The hijackers crashed the first 2 planes, both Boeing 767 airliners, into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. The first was American Airlines Flight 11 that hit the 110-story tall North Tower at 8:46 a.m. The second, United Airlines Flight 175, struck the identical South Tower at 9:03 a.m. The resulting fires and structural damage caused both towers to collapse, resulting in devastation in the surrounding area. Third plane, a Boeing 757 of American Airlines Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. at 9:37 a.m. A fourth aircraft, a Boeing 757 of United Airlines, was being flown towards Washington, probably towards either the Capitol building or the White House, but the passengers, having heard reports of the other 3 hijackings, revolted against their own captors, who flew the aircraft into the Stony Creek Township in Pennsylvania. Between the airline passengers and those killed on the ground, some 2,977 people lost their lives. The immediate response was a complete closure of the airspace over the USA, with around 500 international flights cancelled or diverted in mid-air. The US President George W. Bush announced a war on terror, the first part of which was the war in Afghanistan to overthrow the Taliban, who supported al-Qaeda and hosted their training camps. The NATO Council declared that the attack on the USA was considered an attack on all member countries that satisfied Article 5 of the NATO Charter, the first time this has ever been invoked. The Taliban regime was effectively overthrown in 2001, but the country remained unstable for the next 20 years, until the Taliban re-established control after coalition forces withdrew from the country. The attack had been planned by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who presented it to al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in 1996 and was given the go-ahead in late 1998. However, bin Laden originally denied any responsibility for the attacks, despite growing evidence to the contrary. He finally admitted al-Qaeda's involvement in a taped message in 2004. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was arrested in Pakistan in 2003 and taken to the American Guantanamo Bay interrogation camp, where he remains to this day. Osama bin Laden was eventually traced to a compound near Abbottabad in Pakistan in 2011, where he was captured and killed by US Special Forces on the orders of President Barack Obama. In the longer term, multiple anti-terrorism laws have been passed in countries around the world, leading to some claims of human rights violations against suspects and the invasion of privacy of everyday people. Security at airports around the world has been stepped up enormously, initially causing great inconvenience, but now just seem part of everyday travel. In so many respects, the world became a very different place on 9/11. Looking at notable birthdays on September 11th, we start with Carl Zeiss, born this day in 1816. Zeiss established a workshop in Jena, Germany, manufacturing precision instruments and optics in 1846. Working with employees such as optical physicist Ernst Abbe and glassmaker Otto Schott, Carl Zeiss revolutionized the design and operation of microscopes and other instruments, and his company remains to this day one of the most respected optical companies in the world. In 1885, English author D. H. Lawrence was born in the small coal mining town of Eastwood, Nottinghamshire. He is best known perhaps for his novels Sons and Lovers, The Rainbow, Women in Love, and Lady Chatterley's Lover. This last novel was the subject of a famous trial in 1960 where the publisher, Penguin, was charged under the Obscene Publications Act of 1959, mainly due to the explicit language used in the novel. Penguin was found not guilty, a verdict that led to far greater freedom of expression of publication in the United Kingdom. On to the movies now, and in 1917, Herbert Lom came into the world. Born Herbert Kuczajewicz ze Śludebacheru in Prague, he changed his name to Lom once he started acting, as it was the shortest he could find in the telephone directory. He moved to the UK in 1939 and pursued a career in film and on stage. An actor with a very fine dramatic range, he is probably best known for the role of Chief Inspector Dreyfus opposite Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther movies. To the start of a different kind now, and in 1937, Robert Crippen was born. Crippen became a naval aviator, then worked as a test pilot and instructor at Edwards Air Force Base in California before graduating as an astronaut. His most notable achievement was piloting the first mission of the Space Shuttle, STS-1, in 1981. He went back to space on 3 further shuttle missions, the last time in 1984. After serving as director of the Kennedy Space Center, he left NASA in 1995 to work in industry. Among his many honors is the Congressional Space Medal of Honor, the highest award for spaceflight achievement. A very different kind of star was born this day in 1967, American singer and actor Harry Connick Jr. Connick was born and raised in New Orleans and was a child prodigy at the piano. He later turned to jazz, studying in New Orleans and in New York. His big break came when he was chosen to sing on the soundtrack of the romantic comedy When Harry Met Sally. His screen debut was as an airman in the movie Memphis Belle in 1990. He's recorded many platinum-selling albums and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. On this day in 1945, Dutch physician Willem Kolff connected a 67-year-old woman to his dialyzer, an artificial kidney. Over the previous 2 years, he had attempted to treat 16 patients with acute kidney failure, but with no success. However, after 11 hours connected to the device cleaning her blood, this time the woman regained consciousness. This was the first life saved by a dialysis machine. Kolff's machine was crude. It was constructed under the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, and it used sausage skins, orange juice cans, and washing machine parts to create a filter to remove waste products such as creatinine and urea from the blood. Kolff made 5 machines, and after the war he donated them to hospitals around the world. Independently, in 1945, Gordon Murray at the University of Toronto designed a dialyzer that used fixed flat plates as the filter system, unlike Kolff's rotating drum, as well as incorporating a pump rather than relying on the patient's own blood pressure. And it's Murray's design that led to modern dialysis systems. As for Kolff, he moved to the USA in 1950. At the Cleveland Clinic, he was involved in the design of the first heart-lung machine. At Brigham and Women's Hospital in New York, he collaborated on an improved dialysis machine called the Kolff Brigham that entered commercial production. Later, in 1967, he moved to the University of Utah, where he helped develop the first artificial heart. The first human recipient was Barney Clark in 1982, who survived for 4 months. Kolff is remembered now as the father of artificial organ therapy. Let's look now at the passing of some noted people. In 1956, Air Marshal William Bishop passed away at the age of 62. Billy Bishop, as he was better known, was a World War I pilot and fighter ace. With 72 confirmed victories, he was the 3rd highest scoring ace of the war, behind the Red Baron von Richthofen with 80 victories and the Frenchman René Fonck with 75. During the Second World War, as an Air Marshal in the Royal Canadian Air Force, he was instrumental in creating the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan that taught some 167,000 airmen. His awards included the Victoria Cross, the highest honour awarded by the British Crown, as well as 2 Distinguished Service Orders, the Military Cross, Distinguished Flying Cross, the Légion d'Honneur, and the Croix de Guerre. Ronnie Peterson died this day in 1978 at the age of only 34 in an accident during the Formula One Italian Grand Prix. Peterson was a glamorous and popular racing driver known variously as the Super Swede or Mad Ronnie. His ability was such that, even in the season in which he died, he came second in the World Drivers' Championship, losing out to teammate Mario Andretti by just 13 points. Bringing untold joy to youngsters and bedtime story duties to parents was Roger Hargreaves, creator of the Mr. Men series of books, who died this day in 1988 at the age of just 53. Hargreaves started his career in advertising and began writing the Mr. Men books in 1971 after his son had asked him what a tickle looked like. Hargreaves drew a round figure with long arms, and a franchise was born. Although he wrote many other books for children, he will be mainly remembered for the 46 Mr. Men and 33 Little Miss characters he created. On this day in 2002, Johnny Unitas passed away, aged 69, to many the greatest quarterback in the history of American football. He played for 18 seasons, mainly with the Baltimore Colts. He was named the NFL's most valuable player 3 times and led the Colts to 4 championships, including Super Bowl V. Nicknamed Golden Arm, in 1956-60, he set the record of 47 consecutive games in which he threw at least one touchdown pass, a record that stood for 52 years. Considered the prototype of the modern quarterback, Momentous was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1979. And in 2020, the world of music lost Frederick Nathaniel Hibbert after complications from COVID-19. Better known as Toots Hibbert, this Jamaican musician led the ska and reggae band Toots and the Maytals from their formation in 1961. Their 1968 song, Do the Reggae, is widely credited as the first use of the word to describe the reggae genre. He went on to record such ska and reggae classics as the album Funky Kingston and a personal favourite, Monkey Man. The launch of the Atari 2600 on September 11, 1977 revolutionized the video game industry. It popularized microprocessor-based hardware and games stored on swappable cartridges, and it was sold with 2 joysticks, 2 paddle controllers, and a game cartridge. At the heart of the console was the MOS Technology 6507 chip, a processor with outstanding performance for the day, but which cost just $25 each. The Atari console brought many arcade games into the home environment. When Space Invaders was ported onto the Atari in 1980, it became the industry's first killer app for games consoles, quadrupling sales and selling over 6 million units in 3 years. The temporary explosion in home video gaming collapsed in 1983, largely due to a saturated market of mediocre products and the rise of home computers onto which games could also be loaded. It took some years for consoles such as the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sony PlayStation to restart the home gaming market and kickstart development into the vast industry it is today. And finally, next time you think of using a mobile phone in your car, obviously not while you're driving, then consider that the first long-distance car-to-car mobile phone call was made this day in 1946. The system used an onboard transmitter and receiver set weighing around 80 pounds or 36 kilos that linked to radio masts connected to the telephone network. A call was made by picking up the handset, making sure no one else was on the line, and then placing the call through an operator. By 1948, the service covered about 100 major cities and highways, although it had just 5,000 subscribers. It wasn't until 1978 that a working cellular phone network was created, opening the floodgates for mobile communication as we know it today. So that was September 11th through history. Thanks so much for watching, and do come back again for the next video when we look at That Was When.